Let's get a look at what's making news in the markets this week, and I'm joined by Darin Fessler. He's a senior hedge advisor with Lakefront Futures and Options. Darin, always enjoy having you on the show. And as I'm looking at this week's USDA Crop Progress Report, we can see that Nebraska corn and soybeans continue to be in good shape and ahead of schedule. So if you could break down for us what we're seeing here and in some of our surrounding states.
Yeah, I think if you take a look at the crop conditions and how everything has panned out so far, obviously Iowa seems to be the circle on the map. There is obviously some concerns in the west central parts of Iowa. There's no doubt about that. If you spoke to clients and producers there, even 4 weeks ago, a lot of them were saying, especially northwest Iowa, there is a potential of a record crop. Now you talk to them, boy, it might be lucky to make 200. But there's other areas of the country that are performing very, very well, Minnesota being one of them. Minnesota, I've said before publicly, I think that state is not only going to crush their yield record, but it's going to be a record that's going to hold for probably some time because the weather has just been so ideal for the growers up there. And you take a look at Nebraska, for example. If you've missed the green snap, the wind, the hail, there's a good chunk of Nebraska that is going to be fairly good. If you've had some of that green snap issue, some of the weather issues, you probably don't feel that way. But if you've missed it, I think the yields are going to be pretty impressive, especially in the southeast part of the state. You take a look at Illinois; they've got some really good rains here, and so Illinois in itself probably going to be 200 plus as a state average.
I heard someone being interviewed one time, and he was asked what expectations were to where the market could move. And he responded, just tell me what the forecast looks like. So that being said, how does the weather play into the volatility of the markets right now?
Yeah, you want to have that good grain fill for corn. Obviously, with Iowa being a little dry and being the largest corn producer, they've missed a lot of that rain that really is probably going to push their grain fill, and a lot of that stuff in Iowa has probably pollinated just fine. It's not that pollination is usually not the issue here in this case. It is the lack of moisture is really going to fill out that ear. So the weather can play a big role here, especially in August, where you're going to have the beans be kind of the center of attention now. For the corn market, though, the weather story is kind of come and pass a little bit here. Yes, you want the cooler nights, you want the nice sunny days and the rain to really, fill out the ears. But on the bean side of things, this is where the beans really start to show their weakness or strength here. And if you get some rains and the weather's ideal here, as FC Stone had earlier this week, the potential for these bean yields, and I agree with them, it could be pretty impressive, especially in relation to corn.
Let me squeeze in a question about ethanol. And when we look at that, the market still has some recovering to do from earlier this year due to all the effects from COVID. But it's also facing an uncertain demand future. How do we make our decisions in that area?
Yeah, I think if you look at ethanol, and it's like any market, whether you're talking crude oil or equity markets, and grains are in this case too, the markets don't like uncertainty. And when you have uncertainty like the ethanol side of things, you have an economy are we going to really go back to shutting this down after, a lot of people say there's going to be another phase of this virus come this winter and this fall. How is the market going to respond to that? Are we really going to go back home? Are we working more remotely? We're working remotely. I don't think it's going away anytime soon, and that driving demand is still going to be hurt there. So I still think that because of the lack of interest in maybe driving the remote, and the uncertainty about the economy, there's going to be uncertainty about ethanol, and that's really what's going to hurt this corn market.
And Darin, the August WASDE report coming out next week, that's the first report of the season where USDA actually uses field observations to determine yields for corn and soybeans. So what are some things that you think we're going to see with this report, and what can we expect prices to do following the August WASDE?
Well, as in the July WASDE, the USDA didn't move the needle at all on anything, so that makes the all-important August, which is really typically not friendly for producers here. Watch what's going on with the yield. Now, granted, Iowa kind of throws things for a little bit of loop here when it comes to the corn yield because of the dryness, but I still think the USDA comes in here raises the corn yield just a little bit. And I think that as right now, as the beans are progressing along here, conditions remain pretty favorable. I would not be surprised USDA step in here, raise that yield on the beans as well too. Watch what China's doing, stepping in, buying a lot of corn, buying some beans here. How does the USDA view that from an export standpoint? Because if we stay on the same course we are on as far as the potential of these beans, that could negate a little bit of this increased export demand from China.
And we're also getting to the time of year when farmers need to be getting that post-harvest grain marketing plan together. What are some questions we need to be asking ourselves when developing that strategy?
I think you always have to be looking forward, not only, next month, 3 months, 6 months, look out 12 to 18 months ahead here and figure out, okay, what really is our potential going to be for next year, and utilize the carries in the market for your benefit here. But right now we're in that seasonally bearish period for corn. Difficult for any of these grains to really rally at this time of the year, but you really got to be thinking about further along here. What, at harvest, how much storage do I have? How much cash flow do I need? Certain times of thing. So it's really coming down to the cash flow needs, because I know a lot of people are playing the PLC and the insurance game. Keep in mind, a lot of those, the payments and the checks are not going to be written probably before a lot of those cash flow needs to be met.
In terms of corn and soybean exports, could you tell me what they've been like, and if you have any guesses as to what's next?
I could see the USDA raising the exports a little bit on this corn. I could probably see them raising exports a little bit on these beans as well. Now, granted, this is the time frame of the year where the U.S. does get some export business. Now, with a lot of projections out of Brazil early on, they're saying, hey, we potentially could have a record corn crop, a record bean crop. How does China view that? Are we kind of the insurance policy for China for right now? I somewhat believe that, but I also believe that China right now really physically needs the grain, because if you watch what China's been doing on their own auctions, they've been selling 100% of their corn at auction. So I think there's a true need for China to step in here, continue to buy the product, because I think there's a real need there.
And Darin, as we wrap up here, any final marketing advice, risk management tips, or selling strategies that you'd like to leave us with today?
Yeah, I think you need to look at some of these carries. These carries have taken a little bit of while to develop, both in the corn and the bean markets. They're really starting to widen out now, and so I think you've got to take a look at where we are next year. How does South America start off early when we get further along in this fall, this winter, and start taking a look at next year's production and where our prices are, and take advantage of those carries.